What's up, boys and girls? This is Tyler, aka Duelcaster Mage, coming to you live from Albania with a new series we're starting today. I call it DCMMD. It's my little deck doctor series where I'm going to be taking some submissions, deck list submissions from people in the community, and kind of giving my 2 cents about how to improve it and make them more competitive. And this is something that other Magic content creators have done, but I think I'm not sure anyone's done it for Duel Commander, certainly. So let's get right into it. This deck list is Oona, Queen of the Fae, and it comes from Wolvie in the Discord. So thanks, Wolvie, for submitting that for consideration. And let's see what we got here. We got blue-black. Color identity, we have Oona, which is 3 and then triple blue/black hybrid mana for a legendary fairy wizard. Flying 5/5, and then you can pay X in a blue/black hybrid. Choose a color, target opponent removes the top X cards of his or her library from the game. For each card of the chosen color removed this way, put a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature token with flying into play. So, one of the most important aspects of this card is if you can generate infinite mana, and especially colored mana like blue or black, but basically all you need is like 1 after you get Oona out to begin with, then you can immediately cause them to deck themselves. And it even gets around stuff like Gaia's Blessing and Cause-Elect, not that people really play those cards. But it doesn't win immediately, unlike, I don't know, Laboratory Maniac, where, you know, you're forcing them to draw, or you're forcing yourself to draw a card and ending the game instantly, but you have to wait till their next draw step. So I guess if you're playing against Karizev and they have like a lightning bolt and they're tapped out, they can shoot you on upkeep or something like that, but that's pretty much very, very much a corner case. So yeah, one of the better infinite mana outlets in the sense that you just straight up win. Thrasios, for example, is another one like that. You can draw your deck, but you have to, I mean, not hard to imagine a way to win after you do that, but Oona is a little bit more on the nose, and as it were. So Wolvie submitted this deck to me. He said it was originally, there were some budget considerations originally, but we're gonna, and then he kind of said there were and there weren't. I mean, he has expensive cards in here already: Force of Will, Underground Sea, stuff like that. So we're gonna ignore budget considerations. We're just gonna try to make this deck as streamlined and competitive as possible. That's our goal. And one of the things I asked Wolvie is kind of like, what kind of direction did you want to take the deck? What's the focus? What's the game plan? How do you want to win? And he was pretty sure that he wanted to do the combo route, so infinite mana, and just slam Oona and then win right away. And so we're gonna honor that preference in the building process. So this is the list he submitted to me. As you can see, if I sort the creatures in a separate row, there's only 5 creatures outside of Oona herself: Baral, Pilipala, Grand Architect, Peregrine Drake, and Deadeye Navigator. So 4 of these 5 are part of infinite mana combos. So if you're not familiar with this one here, Pilipala and Grand Architect, they work together. So the way it works is Grand Architect allows you to tap an untapped blue creature you control to add 2 generic to your mana pool, or 2 colorless. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. And Pilipala lets you spend 2 colorless, untap ability, which is like the opposite of a tap ability. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So what you have to do is get these both on the field, and then turn Pilipala blue with Grand Architect's middle ability. It's just a single blue to do that. And then once Pilipala is blue, then you can tap it to add 2 colorless to your pool, and then put it right into its own ability. And then you untap it and add a blue or black, whatever, to your mana pool, and then that just floats. And you can do that as much as you want, because you keep tapping it and untapping it, and then you're netting 1 colored mana each go around through the loop. And then if you have infinite mana, obviously you just cast Oona from the command zone, even if she wasn't in play already. Doesn't matter how many times she's been killed prior, and then just exile all the cards in their deck. Pretty cool. And then this one is a little bit more expensive, more late game. Peregrine Drake. So just all that matters really for this one is when it comes into play or enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. So it's kind of like a free creature. That's the intended purpose originally. But Deadeye Navigator lets you soul bond with the Peregrine Drake, so you can flicker. So you're like, let's say you have 5 lands, 6 lands. Tap 5 lands for mana. You only need to spend 2 of that mana to flicker the Peregrine Drake. It'll untap all your lands. So you have 3 extra, 4 extra, whatever, floating, and then you just keep doing that over and over again until you have infinite colored mana. It looked like in this original list he sent me, there's no way, I believe, to make infinite colorless mana, which is a bit easier. There's a few ways you can do that, like Basalt Monolith Rings of Bright Hearth. There's other ones I'm not thinking of, but we kind of want to go for colored mana so we can just cast and use Oona. Yeah, so let's look at the rest of the deck here. We have kind of what he said, it was kind of a mono blue with a light splash of black. As you can see from the lands, there's about, I don't know, 15, 17 islands and only 3 basic swamps and some other dual lands and stuff. But he has a lot of counter spells and a decent amount of card draw. So we have cards like Condescend, Force Spike, Mental Misstep, some of these like cheap but kind of situational counters. Spell Pierce, Spell Snare. We have some card draw, card selection, Opt, Ponder, Preordain, Brainstorm. And then on the 2-ball slot, we got more counter spells, Classic, Counter Squall, Daze even. He tried really hard to not push the counter spells up past converted mana cost 2, but still fit in as many as possible. So we're running like Arcane Denial, Logic Knot, Negate. Some of the cards that you don't even see really that often in the 2-ball slot. And then we have a few tutors. We have some Mana Ramp, Dimir Signet, Sapphire Medallion, Thought Vessel. Not too much else of note there. We have some bounce, some mass removal. In the 3 spot, we have some more removal, Hero's Downfall, Imprisoned in the Moon, some card draw, Jace Beleren, Rhystic Study, and then Toxic Deluge, of course. And then a lot of these cards aren't really like super noteworthy. I mean, we have some more tutors. We have Jace the Mind Sculptor, needs no introduction. And then some more tutors, Evacuation, Mystic Confluence. Some ways to bounce creatures and some more tutors. One thing, let's just point out some of the. I guess I wanted to point out some of the like strong aspects of this, or what I feel are solid directions to go. I definitely like the counter spells in the lack of creatures. I think I'm a big fan of like playing nearly creatureless decks and kind of blanking my opponent's removal as much as possible. And he really just distills it down to the bare essence of what you need for creatures. I mean, you have the 4 that are part of infinite mana combos, and then Baral, which is obviously extremely good, so much that I was banned like a couple weeks ago in the format as a commander. Still can play him in your 99. And I like the draw go strategy. Even when you, let's say you cast Oona, if you are able to protect her, then you can, keep your counters up and then, activate her ability. Even if you don't have infinite mana, you can chip away and get an army of 1/1 fairies, which is also pretty strong. And kind of along those draw go lines, you have cards like Glimmer of Genius to get some card advantage at instant speed. Evacuations, I mean, it makes sense that it's an instant. I'm not sure how I feel about that card. I mean, blink of an eye. You got some interaction at instant speed too, which is nice. So, and then you have some tutors that are pretty cool. Obviously, Demonic Tutor. Limduel's Vault is an interesting one in Dimir. You can look at the top 5 and then anytime as many times as you want, pay a life and then rearrange them, in the final 5 are what you can stack the top of your deck. It's not actually card advantage, but it's a reasonable tutor. Kind of reminds me of like Tainted Pact a little bit, or Spoils of the Vault. Anyway, yeah, so got some stuff. He has a High Tide in here, which is interesting. He runs a lot of islands as a result. It kind of constrains his mana base a little bit. I don't love this plan just because, I mean, what are you doing? Maybe you double your mana, you get Oona out a little bit earlier. Maybe you can cast her with Counterspell backup. But beyond that, you're really forcing your deck to be built a certain way with a huge amount of islands and a real small number of black cards relative to blue cards. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I also am looking at the number of lands here, 37. It seems low to me. 37 lands, let's see, would be like 37. How many in the 60 card deck? That would be only like 22 lands. And you're playing a 6 mana commander that is very mana hungry. You got a mana activated ability. You don't really have that many rocks right now. I think we really need to jack up the number of lands here by at least 3. And then, yeah, other things I think are, even if you're going for the game plan of infinite mana into Oona combo kill, I wouldn't run cards like Unsummon. I think this card is just too... First of all, it's card disadvantage. Unless you're saving your creature from a removal spell, but there are better ways to do that. So if you're just using it to buy time, it's not that effective. Like, they can just recast whatever they have. Yeah, you could counter it, but you're down a card. You need to keep playing land drops and keep getting ahead on cards to be effective in this game. Boomerang, same thing. The nice thing about this card is you can bounce lands with it. So in a really heavy tempo build, it could make sense, but we're not really in that world. And then, sorry, one sec. I mean, I don't really understand why cards like Animate Dead are here. Like, Oona doesn't mill to the graveyard, she exiles. You don't really have much, synergy with it. You kind of want all your cards to be leading toward an end goal. And if they're not directly enabling that, then they're keeping you alive and getting you cards or some more of the resource advantage to where you can get to that point. Declaration of Naught. Yeah, I don't know. Like this, I guess the idea is to play it and counter their commander. But I mean, you're looking at, if you're on the play turn 3 where you can hold this up, and then so you can maybe counter their 3-drop, but if they have something cheaper than that, you're kind of out of luck. You're kind of stuck holding up a blue all the time, which you're almost like stone raining yourself. So I don't really like that card very much. I don't like telling time. Some cards I think are just a little bit weak compared to some other alternative options. So like telling time, I think is worse than impulse. If you want this sort of effect. Prohibit, you're really scratching the bottom of the barrel here as far as two mana counters. Like this card's fine, but I'd rather honestly play like a 3 mana hard counter than this card. Negate even. Yeah, you probably have a lot of good targets, but if you play against something like Saskia, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Even muddled mixture, like what are you tutoring for that's like super necessary? I guess you can tutor for Pilipala, but doesn't seem like enough on its own. So, yeah, I think there's definitely some improvements we can make. Long-term plans. This is not really the tutor I think you want. It's just really slow. I like that it's instant speed, but you're waiting. If you play it at the end of their turn, you're waiting another 3 turns before you can draw that card. Monastery Siege, again, I don't really see what the synergy is here. I think this card's playable in Duel Commander, but I think you want to have some sort of graveyard thing going on, or madness or something for that to be good. Yeah, so I'm going to open up a file rather than go through everything I kind of mentioned to you before. So what I did was I kind of went through earlier and picked out a bunch of cards that I thought were not maybe ideal, that maybe we want to look at cutting. This was my first pass, and I put them in the sideboard over here. So on the left are cards that Wolvie had in his original list that I think were fine. That I thought at first pass, yeah, like these cards make sense to me. We'll keep them in there for now. And then over here we have cards that we cut. So I don't know if everything got included. All right. I already mentioned a few of these cards, like the Unsummon. Ash Barrens, I don't know if you really need that when you have this many basics already. Like, I think it's nice in a 3+ color deck, but I think you probably can do better. Black Sun Zenith, I think is worse than Damnation. So it's just kind of expensive, and the double black's kind of rough. I already talked about Declaration of Naught. Some of these more situational counterspells, Counter Squall, like the 2 life doesn't matter, so it's just kind of a harder to cast. Negate in this deck. Negate itself, Prohibit, Telling Time and stuff I mentioned. I don't love Thought Vessel. I think there are better rocks out there, especially when your commander's kind of colored mana intensive. Rhystic Study, I think this card is great in multiplayer, obviously, but in one-on-one Duel Commander, it's just not reliable enough. And maybe I could see it in like a tempo deck where you're trying to they need to cast something to stay alive, and they can't afford to pay the 1 or whatever, but not really so much in Duel. In this particular deck, they have time to, I don't know, play around it. Or, I guess it makes sense when you're having a bunch of counter spells that are like counter unless you pay 1, 2, 3, whatever. But yeah, Aetherize. Yeah, I don't think this is that great. I think you want a way to permanently deal with threats. And Engulf the Shore is a good one that could do a similar thing. That's pretty good. But Aetherize, I don't know, doesn't really deal with some problematic creatures that aren't attacking you. Diabolic Tutor, I think, is just too slow. Evacuation, yeah, it makes sense. It's okay, but it's just kind of expensive. Mystic Confluence does a lot of the same thing. Am I missing one? Oh yeah, Beseech the Queen. I don't know. I think it's just like if you have, unless you have triple black, it's going to be like a more restrictive demonic tutor. So I don't really love this tutor. Unless I'm in mono black, I think it's fine there. Okay, but obviously we kept more than we cut at first pass. Now let me show you a file where I came up with a bunch of cards that I considered adding here. On the left is kind of the same thing, and then on the right I added a whole 103 cards that I thought were other things that we maybe consider to kind of reinforce our game plan or stabilize or things like that. So I added more black cards because I think I want to move away from the high tide plan, even though I still have it in here right now. I think high tide is going to be a little bit too restrictive of a game plan. So that frees us up to play more black cards, and even like these 1-drops. I like Duress, Inquisition, Thoughtseize. These are staples in pretty much any black deck. Kind of clear the way for our combos. Fatal Push is a great 1-mana removal spell, and you have like some really brutal cards against the opponent, like Mind Twist here. I'm a huge fan of Pithing Needle in the metagame right now, so I've been jamming this in pretty much every deck, and I think you'll see even more reason to run it as I get through this list some more. And Training Grounds is another one of my pet cards. It's really kind of really sweet with Oona because let's say you have a bunch of colored mana available. Well, you can say X is 2, then pay like a blue or black hybrid, and then you can mill the top 2 or exile the top 2 of their deck, name a color. If you hit, you just keep doing it different instances, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 6 times, and you're getting, let's say you have 6 blue and black sources. You get 12 cards you get to mill for just 6 mana. So it actually stacks really nicely. You can just keep using your ability over and over again. Let me just check something for you guys really quick. Ooh, okay. So what else we have? Okay, the biggest thing that I thought this deck needed, and it does affect a lot of the overall slots, but I think it's worth it, is the Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal combo, infinite mana combo. So, and by the way, before I explain this, John Smith asked, isn't slow mill a bad idea in Commander? It's not actually slow mill when you are able to generate infinite mana. That's kind of the idea. The idea is to generate infinite mana and just one-shot them with Oona's ability. So here's another way to do that. Isochron Scepter. So 2-mana artifact, imprint, you can exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less in your hand from the game, and then you can pay 2, tap it, copy the imprinted instant card, and play the copy without paying its mana cost, or cast the copy. And what you want to put on this is Dramatic Reversal, which is just a simple 1 in a blue instance that says untap all non-permanents you control. So, Training Grounds. Yeah. Well, the thing is with Training Grounds, I don't know. It is slow mill. So like in the event that you don't get infinite mana, which is probably pretty likely a lot of the time, maybe half the time, maybe more than half the time. It's kind of slow turbo, if that makes sense. And plus, you can get a ton of fairies. I mean, I wouldn't really probably play Training Grounds in a deck that didn't have a commander that had a sweet activated ability, but I think you could make a case for it in Oona. Spoiler alert, I didn't end up putting it in the deck in the final list. Anyway, we're talking about the Isochron Scepter Reversal infinite mana combo. So you can put this on the Scepter, and then as long as you have 3 mana in Mana Rocks, you can make infinite mana. And if just one of those Mana Rocks can make a colored mana, then you can just cast Oona and mill them out straight away. And for example, like let's say Gilded Lotus is probably the easiest example to use. So you have the Isochron Scepter Reversal, and then boom, Gilded Lotus. Tap, add 3 blue, use 2 of it to untap, or to cast the copy from the Scepter, untap everything, and go to town. So that kind of informs, that combo and ways to search it up really inform a lot of what I am suggesting for Wolvie here. And how to build this deck. I think it's a better infinite mana combo, definitely, than Peregrine Drake, Deadeye Navigator. It's just more resilient, and because it's not a creature, you're not gonna be hit with terminates and lightning bolts and stuff as much, breaking your combo up. So that's pretty good. And yeah. What else? Some other just value cards that are really strong, like Baleful Strix is just a house in any blue-black deck. It's like really hard not to play this card in a blue-black deck, in my opinion. I have a bunch of just 2 mana rocks to go along with that Scepter Reversal plan. Charcoal Diamond's probably the worst of them, but you have like Cold Steel Heart, Felwar Stone, because a lot of people play blue and black, Talisman of Dominance, etc. And some removal. I have Diabolic Edict and Go for the Throat, both of which can be imprinted onto Isochron Scepter, which is really important to note. And then some more value cards, Search for Ascanta, Spellskite. These are all cards that I'm just considering here at this point to add to the list. And then in our 3-drop slot, we have some more Mana Rocks, Basalt Monolith, Coalition Relic, and then cards like Blue Sun Zenith. So this gives another way to win the game. If you have infinite mana, but something happened to Oona, like she got imprisoned in the moon or something like that. So you can just immediately kill them with Blue Sun Zenith if you have, enough mana, triple blue and then infinite colorless or infinite blue or whatever you need. I'd put some 3 mana counters in to consider. Disallow is probably the best one. Dismember is a great, actually 1, 2, 3 mana removal spell. Ensnaring Bridge, Liliana the Last Hope, Propaganda. So some interesting cards here. One that's quite interesting, I think, and very good actually, is Scion of Oona. Now, this card on its own is pretty bad. Like, obviously, a 1/1 flying for 3 mana is not going to beat down by itself, but it gives a little bit of protection to Oona. Like, you can tap out on 6 and play Oona, the Queen of the Fae, and she'll have Shroud if Scion's in play. Furthermore, if you are at a point where you need to slow mill them, you can hopefully get some Fairy Rogues from Oona's ability, and then there'll be 2/2 flying Shrouds. Spellseeker, once again, helps get either High Tide if we're going to go that plan, or Dramatic Reversal. And then along those lines, I kind of forgot to mention Merchant Scroll, that can also get Dramatic Reversal, or a whole host of other cards. Cyclonic Rift or whatever you need. Vidalcan Shackles. War of Invention is nice because it's instant speed way to get Isochron directly into play from your library. And I'm going to be running a lot more artifacts. Let's go to our 4 drops here. We have a few more like instant speed draw spells, Chemister's Insight, Factor Fiction, Hieroglyphic Illumination. I love Coercive Portal. I think this card's really underplayed in Duel Commander. I think it's pretty strong, especially if we're curving into it on turn 3 with our 2 mana rocks. Damnation, I kind of mentioned that earlier. A few more Planeswalkers. One really sweet card, Mystical Teachings in blue and black. So you can get that, dramatic reversal you need, or Cyclonic Rift, or whatever, Mystic Confluence. But it's at instant speed, so you can do it at the end of their turn or in response to something. You can even get a Force of Will or something like that. And then we have some bigger rocks, Thran Dynamo. One card I really wanted to mention because I thought it was like the perfect. I've been waiting for a home for this card for so long. It's been on my radar, but I never found really a place for it. But I think this could actually work really well. Is Crumbling Sanctuary. What this says is for each 1 damage that would be dealt to a player, instead that player removes the top card of his or her library from the game. Well, exiles the top card of the library. So this can keep you alive so long. Like if you're at, let's say you get down, you're trying to stabilize, you get to 4, you drop this thing. All of a sudden, every damage they deal, you just exile a card from your deck. You have probably 85 cards, so it's almost like you gained, 80 life or something like that. And maybe they mill Isochron Scepter or something, but you can find other ways to win. Plus, you might you're turbo milling them and attacking them. I assume you're gonna beat them before they beat you in terms of getting your library down to 0. We have a few more Planeswalkers here. Obnixilis, it's just a solid value Planeswalker. Tezzeret the Seeker, more than just value. This is a tutor. I really like this card. With our extra rocks, this +1 ability is that much better. So you can untap 2 artifacts, maybe hold counter mana up, or best of all is this -X middle ability to search your library for an artifact. So you can get that Isochron Scepter, you can get that Pili Pala you need, or even a Baleful Strix to stabilize, all that good stuff. I'm even considering running like Submerge. There's a lot of green in the metagame, and this the put on top of the deck ability is extra good with if Oona. If you just happen to have Oona out, you can just immediately exile that and get know you're gonna get a fairy and deal with a creature permanently. Then we have some more expensive cards. I considered All Is Dust. I think this card is really good in this kind of deck. We have a lot of mana rocks, and we don't have a way to deal with like enchantments and artifacts because we're blue-black, but All Is Dust can actually handle that sort of thing while leaving some of our win conditions intact. Karn, Ugin, Commit to Memory, whoops, all that good stuff. So let me show you guys the final version, because obviously 80% of these cards I wasn't able to fit in. I actually got a little bit behind. I actually need to make 4 cuts, so if anyone's watching and you want to help me make cuts, I'd be very appreciative. So I kept in the Isochron Scepter, Dramatic Reversal, infinite mana option, and that really, like I said, constrained a lot of the cards I wanted. But the cards are good on their own. Like these rocks help you cast Oona sooner. She's a 5/5 flying. I mean, she can block, hold down the fort. That's really good. You can ramp into core support. You can ramp into Crumbling Sanctuary, Tezzeret. Yeah. I ended up cutting some more of the cards that Wolvie had originally, like some more of the really kind of situational counter spells. Let me look at my list here, because I kind of wrote down. Okay, I ended up cutting Opt, Spell Snare, High Tide, Innocent Blood, Duress, Baral, Daze, Sapphire Medallion, Limdul's Vault, Blink of an Eye. Those are other cards I added. Jay Spellerin, Imprison in the Moon, Glimmer of Genius, and then I cut the Peregrine Drake Deadeye Navigator infinite mana combo. I just think it's too expensive. Peregrine Drake's too. Actually, both of those cards are kind of crappy on their own. Like they don't really do what you want to do on their own. Whereas like Grand Architect is actually pretty strong on his own. You can tap him let's say it's turn 3, you can tap immediately to play like Cold Steel Heart or something like that. And then he even pumps all your fairies. If you get to that point of making fairies with Oona, he can pump all those fairies. So that's pretty good. Pilipala sucks on his own, like no getting around that. But I think the combo is strong enough to keep it in there. So you basically now the 2 ways to get infinite mana are the Pilipala plus Grand Architect or Isochron Scepter, Dramatic Reversal. And I ended up putting in some of these kind of stopgap measures to stabilize, like Fatal Push, Baleful Strix, Diabolic Edict, Go for the Throat. I put in Damnation, Dismember, so I added more creature removal. I did, like I said, I took out the Black Sun Zenith, stuff like that. And yeah, I need to cut 4 cards, guys. So yeah, I'm like these last, anytime we get down to like that few cards, I really struggle, as I'm sure we all do, to make those final cuts. But I'll do that, and I'll a little bit later, and I'll put the final list on Tapped Out in the video description, so you can watch that or look at that at your leisure. What else? I added like I said, I went up from 37 lands up to 40, and I took out I took out, what did I take out? The one that lets the basic land cycling one, Underground Sea, because I don't really love paying lands in a 2-color deck, or at least in a 2-color control deck. And then, Underground River, Tectonic Edge, and Buried Rune, and that Ash Barrens. And then I added a few cards, so I'm not really dealing with High Tide anymore, so I don't really have to worry about the number of islands so much. I mean, I did end up, I still have Vidalican Shackles in here right now for now. I might cut it, but I went down on islands a little bit, and I added Temple of Deceit, really nice Scryland, even though it comes into play tapped. Temple of the False God, because we are running a lot of lands, and Oona costs exactly 6, so you can sneak her in a turn early with that. What else? I added these 2 artifact lands, Seed of the Synod and Vault of Whispers. These are just more things you can get with Tezzeret, mainly. And then, you get it with War of Invention if you really are desperate for lands and stuff like that. Academy Ruins, so you can get back, Corrosive Portal if they blow it up, or Baleful Strix for value. Cavern of Souls is really important, I think. I mean, we're running Expedition Map. That was even in the original list, so I think you really need Cavern of Souls. That's like one of the main reasons they're on Expedition Map. Other than that, Creeping Tar Pit. This is a good way to kill Planeswalkers. Not much else to really say about it than that. It can be a win condition if you got a lot of time. And right now I still kept I kept Stroke of Genius in as another way to win with infinite mana. I kept Crumbling Sanctuary in because I really want to try this card out more than anything. I think this card could be awesome. I mean, it could be a flop, but you won't know until you really play with it. I did keep like Mystical Teachings, Merchant Scroll in too. Those were some interesting choices. I think it's feasible to want to cut like some mana rocks, but you really can't go too low with Scepter Reversal. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the changes. I hope Wolvie, I hope this is the direction that he wanted the deck to go. I think it kind of fits the bill, and it seems like a fun deck to play. I like decks like this. I actually, it was really hard not to turn this into like Lantern Control, because I've tried Lantern Control in Duel Commander way too many times than I care to admit. And one of my iterations was with Oona, actually. and it just never works like you want it to. But I mean, the idea makes sense, right? Because if you have a Lantern, Oona becomes a way to just ship whatever card off the top of their deck that is going to wreck you. But it just, in practice, never really works out so much. I could see running like Lantern, like one Lantern, just as kind of a, Miser's Lantern of Insight, in case you get Oona out and you get into the position where you can just wreck them with that. But I don't know. I don't think it's worth it because the card's just so bad on its own. So yeah, tell me what you think of the deck. Still got to make 4 cuts, but check back for the final list. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you like this video, let me know. It's really good to have feedback because never done anything like this before. Haven't really. I probably should have done more research in terms of what people do for these sorts of things. But it was kind of a fun exercise. I love deck building. I think deck building is one of the best aspects of Magic and especially Duel Commander because you just have so many options. So I will see you guys next week. Have a good week and take care. Bye.
Suck me in smoke, breathe me in and let me go. Filling the lungs inside you, and the blackened eyes make my way into your mind. Just to know what you